I'm on the Buccaneers, and it's not because of what they did to the Eagles last night, who didn't show up, because now they're going to face a Lions team. The secondary is not good, but they will hit you. They will get near you. Where we saw receivers last night running wide open, guys not even trying to tackle them, and the tackling attempts were such a joke by the Eagles. The Lions will hit you hard. Some will say, referring to their safeties, that they'll hit you dirty too. But they're definitely a tough team, and they're not going to let the Bucs just waltz into the end zone. But this Buccaneers team, the defense to me is what stands out. 1 touchdown allowed over the last 10 quarters. The run defense allowing about 3.5 yards per carry over the last month. You have Todd Bowles and his blitzing. He blitzed a lot last night, and we know Jared Goff is susceptible to the blitz. And you know that the Lions will want to run the ball. That's their MO. But this Buccaneers front with Vita Vea and everybody healthy, to me, is a defense that can give the Lions enough trouble. Baker's covered 4 straight as a dog, 7 of 8 as a dog. And the Lions secondary, the number 1 most explosives allowed this season. We saw the Rams average 7.7 yards per play against them, which is an obscene amount. And we've seen the last 4 quarterbacks. Nick Mullins twice, 396 and 411. Dak threw for 345. Stafford threw for 367. I think Baker Mayfield, he's better than Nick Mullins, but he can have success with those weapons against a very vulnerable Lions secondary. We can cover this game 27-21, 27-24, 24-20. I like the Bucs to be competitive. RJ, have I convinced you?
Absolutely not. I just think the Lions are clearly in a better tier than the Buccaneers right now. You said you're not basing it on last week. Last week doesn't matter. That team that they played should not have been in the playoffs at that point. You look back to the first game, they won the first game 20-6 on the road in Tampa without Jahmyr Gibbs, and they had a much tougher test last week and survived. I mean, that was the emotional game of all emotional games. First home playoff game in 3 decades, having to face Matthew Stafford, the longtime franchise quarterback, in a spot where everybody was picking the Rams, and they went out, they got it done, they got the win. And Tampa just is not anywhere near the same class as Detroit for me. Their offense is 30th in red zone success rate. Did not matter against a Philadelphia defense like that you said had no interest in tackling anyone. Detroit can give up big plays too, but they can also hit you. And as you were talking about, and make you think twice about going over the middle on some of those plays where it was just wide open for them against the Eagles. The Detroit defense does struggle against the pass, but this is going to be easier matchup for them this week after facing Stafford. And unlike in that game, they have no need to worry about Tampa running the ball, the worst running team in the league. And I know Rachaad White has done well in fantasy, just not a threat to anybody running the ball in Tampa. So Detroit can really play to take away the pass. And Baker Mayfield, as good as he's been, this is a very tough environment on the road against a very good team. And this is the type of game where if it's not all going well for him and things aren't falling the way they should be, like they did against Philly, it could be a little bit of a blowout here. Detroit's offense top 5 in yards per rush, but also yards per pass, so they can focus on the latter if the stout Tampa Bay rush defense shows up. So my only worry here is about Detroit with that defense giving up a backdoor cover, but I just can't fade them at home as the much better team here. Laying only 6, you could still find 6 in the market. Go ahead and do that. I think the line should be 7.5.
Yeah, and just to be frank, I took 6.5, and I would love to get 7 if it got to 7 later in the week. And RJ locked his bet in at 6. So they are different bets. Personally, 27-21. RJ doesn't lose anything. I cash. Mike, settle the dispute.
At 6.5, I have the slightest of leans to the Tampa side. I make the number 6, but getting the hook on the 6.5 is relatively important in that dome in the controlled environment. I think that the back door can be open for Tampa there. I definitely think Detroit wins this game, though. When I look at these two teams, Detroit, they definitely survived the emotional spot. They probably shouldn't have beat the Rams. Rams were awful in the red zone. Some of it Detroit's doing, some of it's not. McVay called a very poor game in some of his game management decisions. But the thing that I keep going back to, you mentioned it, 7.7 yards per play, 9.4 yards per pass. I think that Tampa's going to be able to move the ball between the 20s. I don't know how successful they will be because of the way they run their offense in the red zone either. So I'm out on this game. I'm not playing anything here. The number that I make it is 6. My total is 46.8, so basically 47. Be a slight underlean on the 48.5. But as far as settling it here, pick your favorite guy, because You can find a 6 in the market right now. You can find that 6.5 minus 110 over at BetMGM right now. So you can pretty much find whichever side of this you want to be on. I make it 6, so I'm out and I'm going to enjoy the game. Maybe look for in-game opportunities, play some DFS, but I will not have a bet on this game.
Mosh Stern in the chat asking about Baker Mayfield over 241. I love it as long as he can stay healthy and avoid Aiden Hutchinson more than a couple of times. I do think this is going to come down to how many big mistakes he makes. I think we can survive one interception, one sack fumble. But if there's 2 or 3, then it could get to the blowout scenario that RJ's talking about. Yes, it was 20-6 in week 6. The Lions came in and dominated. They didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery left early with a knee injury. I just think right now you're seeing a totally different Buccaneers defense. This defense, to me, is going to be a problem for the Lions. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was in the first half against the Rams when they just did whatever they wanted. Guys, any strong opinions on the total before I get to my prop?
I don't know about the total, but I was just clicking around as Mikey was talking about strength between the 20s, and you can get Chase McLaughlin to go over 1.5 field goals at plus 100. I mean, this seems like a tailor-made game where he's going to get multiple field goals and Detroit get some stops in the red zone. So that's what I would play. I just think that's great value. I think if people sniff that out, by the time we get to game time, you're going to have a heavy minus number on that over 1.5.
Yeah, especially because of the way they play. And being fairly conservative with the defensive-minded coach. I like that play a lot. My prop in this game, Cade Otton, I bet it this morning at 25.5. By the time I went to enter it on SportsLine, Caesars was up to 30.5. So I entered it there, and we're seeing 27.5 to 31.5 in the market. 11 targets, most on the team last night against the Eagles. 8 catches for 89, and he had a drop. He should have had more. The Lions are a little bit better than the Eagles against tight ends, but tight ends have been going off against the Lions. Twice in the last 4 weeks, they've given up over 100 yards to the tight end position, both against the Vikings, but it wasn't, it was a collection of people, and Cade Otton has no competition for catches. There was one other tight end last night that got a catch, but generally, whenever he's out there, he doesn't block. He runs a route. I mean, he's routinely running 30 plus routes per game. I just love this spot, especially if he's under pressure from Aiden Hutchinson. Baker Mayfield's going to be looking to get rid of it quick, and the big guy over the middle is Cade Otton. Do you guys have any thoughts on props in this game that you like early? I know you haven't locked any in. Mikey, is there anything you're looking at so far prop-wise?
Yeah, I want to focus on Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit. To me, this projects as a decent spot for him. It would be a combo line that I'd be most interested in. But I do think that the Bucs are going to blitz a ton, just like they did against Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to do it a ton to Jared Goff. I do think Detroit's going to be a little better set up to deal with it. I think the obvious look is to Amon-Ra St. Brown around the line of scrimmage. I think everyone knows that. But Gibbs, if you watch him play and you watch when they're in competitive games, you can clearly see the elite athletic talent that he is when he gets the football in his hands. I think he's going to have a big day in the receiving game, but I would still take the combo line because I love and respect his upside on the ground. I think he can have a 30-yard rush that would really, really help. So if I were to play it, it would be the combo line, but I think it is a big day for Jahmyr Gibbs.
RJ, any props that jump out at you?
Oh, I gave the kicking one. The other one would be Rachaad White's under on his rushing. Just seems to be a game where Tampa Bay, not an effective rushing team anyway, but they'll get behind at some point and have to abandon the run. And I don't think he's going to get to his number before that point. So unless they surprise everyone and they're playing from ahead in this game and he's getting 18 to 20 carries, I'm not confident he's getting to his number. So love the kicking one I gave for Tampa and definitely love Rachaad White going under. We'll see which direction that moves. If it starts to tip under, then get it early in the week because I think people are going to jump all over that.
And Demon Slayer asking about Sam LaPorta. RJ, any thoughts on his numbers so far? He was out there. He played the whole game, made a big catch or two, but not the normal numbers we're used to.
Yeah, very surprising he was out there considering how grave that injury looked when it happened. My worry with him is the risk of re-injury. He made it through that game fine. All it's going to take is, planting your foot wrong at one point, taking a bad hit, and then all of a sudden you're playing overs on a guy that plays, 20 to 30% of the snaps, much less than you had. So if you're going to play it, you're going to play the under. But I'm not super confident in that because it should be a good matchup for him too.